Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to introduce you to FINNECT. It's a brand new solution that we believe is transforming the way fintech providers and credit unions will connect with each other. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Julie Esser. I'm CEO and founder of Ignitify. And at Ignitify, what we do is we help identify and validate impactful use cases. We work with fintech companies to enhance your market readiness in the credit union space in particular, and build meaningful relationships between credit unions and fintechs to maximize product value and growth opportunities for credit unions. We know that fintechs struggle to keep in front of the right credit unions, and traditional sales approaches like cold calling and endless RFP processes and just generic vendor directories often don't work. Meanwhile, credit unions are actively seeking and searching for fintech solutions, but they lack a simple and transparent way to find the right fit. Oftentimes, that is through Google searches is the most commonly used way to identify them. In addition to just attending events and things of that nature. And we all know that events can be pricey, especially if you're an early stage company. So that's why we're here today. We're excited to introduce you to FINNECT. FINNECT is an independent and credit union-led platform designed to make fintech discovery faster and easier, more efficient, and built specifically to help fintechs connect with the right credit unions. Before we dive in, feel free to submit any questions in the chat, and we'll address them in the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. I'm excited to be joined today by Christopher Beltran. He's the founder of Common Bonds, and that is the platform that is powering FINNECT. And Chris has been instrumental in building community-driven solutions that foster collaboration between financial institutions and solution providers. Welcome, Chris. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Beltran. I've been in the industry pretty much my whole life. My father was CEO of a credit union for 30 years, so I kind of grew up in it. I never actually worked at a credit union. I went down the tech path, if you will, and ended up building companies that made their way back, fintech style, and made their way back to credit unions. So I ended up spending most of my 20s and 30s in software startup land, building a couple of different companies serving the credit union space. So I've been in the credit union world a long time, mostly on your side of the equation, and have been in a lot of community building. I care a lot about how different audiences come together in the industry to kind of share best practices and amplify sort of each other's mission, if you will. So one of my roles is I'm executive director of FI Community, which is one of the nation's largest online communities of active credit union employees. They share best practices every day. It's actually built on Common Bonds as well. And that liaisons very well with Fiserv and Fiserv DNA sort of ecosystem of clients. So my background is there. The idea behind FINNECT was simply to apply the same community-driven approach to the fintech industry. So we started to say, you know, there's a lot of opportunities for credit unions to connect with each other. There's tons of credit union conferences. No doubt you guys exhibit at many of them. And there's a lot of opportunities for vendors to connect. There's a ton of fintech events, you know, nationwide. I've been to many of them, so have you. And what we didn't see too much of is a lot of communities specifically built for that nexus point or that interaction between credit unions and providers. A lot of times we all, you know, credit unions get together, they talk about it, and providers get together, and then offline is where all of those interactions happen. And those interactions tend to happen one-on-one. And what we wanted to do is start to experiment with how do we get these two audiences together so to enable a little bit more rich interactions, if you will. So more useful, more high value for both ends of the equation. Yeah. Go ahead, Julie.
Awesome.
Cool.
I'm going to have you drive the slides. So if you wouldn't mind advancing for me, that would be fantastic. So why was FINNECT created? So the idea behind FINNECT actually began as a filing I3 innovation project called CU FinTech Connect. So for those of you that might not be familiar with Filene and their I3 program, what they do is bring together top credit union professionals to solve real industry challenges. They are like the industry think tank, if you will. They have a number of credit unions that they work with. They do a lot of market research, consumer-based research. And then they have this I3 program to drive innovation. They create concepts of different things. Then those concepts often lead to implementation in their lab and things of that nature. So when I first saw this opportunity at their annual Big Bright Minds conference last fall, actually it was 2 falls ago, I was very intrigued by it because we actually had some conversations internally about creating something very similar. And so, we know that there's a lot of challenges with IT integrations and core digital banking integrations and things of that nature. And so, how do we have a platform that allows credit unions to be able to actively search on those type of attributes of an organization to speed up the time it takes in making those connections faster? So through their research, the Filene research, they really identified 3 major problems. One was finding the right fintech partners is complex and time consuming. Credit unions were spending many, many hours in their search process only to find out later that they were not, the company that they were looking at or talking to was not compatible with their technology stack. We know that traditional directories like buyer's guides and things really don't work. Fintech struggle to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And also, we know that companies are challenged with the buzzwords of the industry or of the, financial services industry as a whole, whether that be AI, a lot of companies are in the AI space, and how do you stand out in a really crowded field there? Credit unions have limited budgets and they need ways to identify the best solutions, right? So we know that credit unions are resource strapped. We know that they have challenges in having the time and effort, and for you, it's always a difficulty to get on their list of priorities, right? So how do you stand out? How do you position yourselves? And how do you get on that priority list? So you, as fintechs, need a better way too to connect with decision makers, and credit unions need a streamline to find those fintech providers. And that's why FINNECT was built, to create a trusted, data-driven matchmaking platform, no pun intended, where fintechs providers can connect with actively searching credit unions in a more efficient and transparent way. So what exactly is FINNECT? What can it do? If you wouldn't mind advancing for me. So again, FINNECT is the independent credit union-led platform to simplify searching and making fintech discovery easier and more effective. It increases visibility. You get in front of credit unions that are actively searching for solutions. It helps build trust. And many of you that that I've worked with or are currently working with, we talk a lot about the beginning of the customer journey process. That customer journey process starts with awareness. It starts with how do you gain respect from the industry and how do you build trust? Those 3 things are paramount to get you to your first sale. And so, building that trust through verifiable credit union reviews provides that transparency and credibility. And then it offers the ability to turn insights into real opportunities. So we're matching with credit unions based on their real needs, not just what the marketing email has to say. So the ultimate goal here is to help fintechs connect with the right credit unions faster, with confidence, and backed by real-world engagement. So Christopher, can you share how Common Bonds plays a role in making fintechs a collaborative and peer-driven platform?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the biggest challenge fintechs face is kind of getting in front of the right people at credit unions, right? And I've been sort of in those shoes before. I did all the cold outreach. We hired business school kids to do cold calls and do those kinds of strategies. And while all of those are effective, expensive trade shows included, third-party directories, and all of that, I think there's a strong role for those in your sales process. And what we're finding is that while those can blanket out the market and give you some interesting data on maybe generally where to hit up, the level of engagement reached by those touch points tends to be fairly low. The object of those efforts is not to result in a high level of engagement. The object is to get an understanding of where should we focus our efforts. So do we focus on the East Coast, West Coast, or central of the country, that sort of thing. And so I think where Common Bond's community platform plays a role is to augment those efforts. It's not going to replace all those tried and true sort of sales techniques. You're still probably going to be going to trade shows. What we want to do is when you do go to a trade show or there is these interactions, how do we amplify and make sure that as much is known about you from by them and about them to you. And so that way when you do finally get to the point of actually talking to them about a real decision, you want to minimize the time, sort of the wasted efforts on those. The worst thing we all hate is you spend an hour and a half talking to a decision maker. Both sides are excited, only find out there's an integration and compatibility, or there's some sort of, principle or something that attribute that they needed out of you, and you don't have that, piece of certification or whatever it is that you needed. And it's a very, very kind and nice departure from the call. Everybody agrees to talk next year when the time is right, quote unquote. And what we want to do is, while all of that is nice, it's also still a waste of both parties' time. And so what we're trying to do is hopefully shorten that a little bit, is help you have a little bit more efficient communications there. And Common Bonds is a platform designed to bring multiple audiences together in a couple of different ways. So what we've done here is we've started to create a very simple approach, kind of a starter approach, if you will, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, back to you,
Can you
Julie.
talk a little bit more about the Common Bonds platform in the next slide?
Yeah, and the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what we wanted to do here um, is we're bringing together. There's a lot of functionality we can throw at it. You guys are involved in the tech space as well, so there's a ton of things from AI to business learning to lots of different ways to bring people together and sort of infer, how things should match up. What we wanted to do is we said, you know what, these are really, well-versed providers, well-versed credit unions. We want to just start really, really simple. So we've taken a deliberate approach to make things look very, very simple and try to figure out, okay, how do we get you? What is it really that you probably need? And how can we help Common Bonds kind of look out for you when you're not signed in? You have a busy life, sales side. We don't want you, the object is not to sign in every single day. And, as much as we'd love for you to, we don't foresee, this taking up so much of your time. What we want you to do is be able to come in a first time, give a decent comprehensive contribution there. And I'll show you what that means. And then, come out, we'll have Common Bonds look out in the market space for you. When things are interesting and start to make sense, we'll let you know. And then maybe periodically, once a month, once a quarter, come in and check, update some things, and go from there. I think that's how we want you to start. Eventually, as we start to interact in the little bit richer ways, well, there's some opportunities there for you guys is to start to make it a little bit more collaborative. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can kind of bring credit unions together on your own and maybe empower you as well in the same community as we're doing sort of this shopping, vendor matching piece. So there's a bright future ahead. There's a lot of engagement possibilities. What we're going to walk you through today is just a couple of highlights to kind of get you excited about it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great. And I don't know if we're having some difficulty in advancing the slides, Christopher.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
if you want
That was
to
me.
jump to the FINNECT features, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, no, sorry, I didn't realize there was a slide for Common Bonds. So yeah, Common Bonds right now is used already by 3,000 active financial institution employees. There's well over 12,000 discussions going on actively. FI Community leverages, that's the DNA Client Association for DNA clients. Many hundreds of credit unions are already on there. I will say that last year for FI Community, for that community was their 25th anniversary. So they have, 25 years going on that other community going on. And that's all volunteers. All of these credit union employees have term limits, chairs, vice chairs, and they're very enthusiastically involved over there. And their mission there is peer-to-peer best practices, mainly on their core. And what they're looking for here is, even though it's a separate community, FINNECT is entirely separate. They're going to be able to use single sign-on. They'll be able to switch back and forth between what they do on the FI community side and what they do in the FINNECT platform. So we think that's a really big win and a really big gain for all of those folks that are already actively involved over there. So just so you guys know, there's already a heavy base being exposed to FINNECT right off the bat. And then what we hope to do is develop provider-specific type sub-communities over in FINNECT where it makes sense, and then help you guys and the credit unions kind of understand where it's going in terms of who I should be talking to when I go to these conferences. Who do I make sure, whose hands do I need to shake, things like that. So yeah, I think that's what you wanted me to mention, Julie, about common bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Let's get
absolutely.
into some of the features, because now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes about the platform. And this is what I'm really excited to share with you guys. And so some of the features for you is you get matched with credit unions, right? So think about this, and the way we're starting this. This is our MVP, our minimal viable product, right? And so this is what the research concept asked us to create. But as you can imagine, as you guys all know, once you start with that concept, the ideas start churning, right? And how you can really take this platform to another level. So what you'll see in the demonstration next is the ability to be able to um, have like an Amazon-like experience with the ratings and reviews, the 5 stars on different things. You'll be able to get a lot of that sentiment data. So getting matched with credit unions, forget about cold calls. But I do want to tell you, this is not going to be your end all be all. Eventually, I hope it is. But to start, we need credit unions in the platform. We need service providers in fintech in the platform. And together, the two markets coming together is really what's going to make this extremely powerful. So you'll be able to boost your credibility and improve your offering, again, through this ratings and reviews capability. It's going to provide you some amazing feedback. Christopher will be able to show you. Credit unions can decide whether or not to share that feedback anonymously or not, or they can elect to share it. We'll be able to provide some recaps of the sentiment data back to you. You can showcase your solution to decision makers. So get right in front. The profiles that you'll be able to create is the first step, right? And then sharing a little bit more specific details in terms of the product offering, product categories will only allow credit unions to find you faster. We have added over 200 different categories for you to select from. And so the goal behind that is to create as many ways possible for you to show up on their active search list. And the other thing that I think that's going to be pretty cool for you all is that we can create some private user groups for you. And so as you'll see in the platform, we've created a number of groups for credit unions to collaborate on different industry-related topics. Now, not all fintechs, not all companies will be able to be participative in those conversations. Some things we want just credit union specific, but there are specific groups that we will have just for the fintech community, right? So that credit unions won't be a part of. So if you have questions that you want to ask about specific credit unions, as an example, those would be the type of environments that you can ask those questions and ask them among your peers and things like that. These private groups, though, if you don't have an advisory group or you don't have a dedicated user group of credit unions, this could be one way that you can facilitate those conversations as well. So Christopher will take us into the demo next. and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yay, thanks, Julie. All right, so I'm going to switch out to a browser and kind of walk you through a couple of different concepts. And what I'm hoping that you guys will feel as you walk through it is I'm hoping you'll say like, oh, that's it. Pretty basic, pretty simple. And if that's the case, then we've sort of accomplished our mission on our side. What we wanted to do, like I said, is keep things as simple as possible. We're operating right off the Filene sort of results, and then we augmented and we added a little bit more flavor, a little bit more interesting pieces to it that we thought were useful. And then I think what you're going to see today is sort of a foundation that we're laying. And what we want to do is then start to turn on some more features in the future and start to outline a little bit more than that. So what you're going to see first is I'm going to log in as a test provider. So that's an example of what you guys might see in the beginning. When you register, when you go to the website, joinfinnect.com, then you'll be able to come here to our registration screen. The registration screen is really, really basic. I'll just show it to you really quick on a different tab. You'd select that you're a fintech service provider and you fill out simple email, password, any promo codes, invite codes, and you just register from there. So it's a really straightforward registration process, nothing super complicated. We are approving, Julie's team is approving every single provider, and that kind of helps us keep, just outside of industry or anybody out on the internet from registering. So just so you know, when you do register, you'll get a message that says waiting for approval. Julie's team will approve you most often at times in one day, and then you'll get an email saying welcome in. What that happens after that is that any of your team from then on can start to register, and you can have unlimited employees register. So the first person that logs in ends up being your admin. You can have more than one admin, and they're the only ones that have to wait for approval. So afterwards, you can ask your entire sales team to register. It's all included, same subscription, same one single price, all inclusive. And I think that's important to know because Julie's team didn't want to have you guys have run into some friction when it comes to, well, do we have an intern also use this and so forth? We just want, all of you guys to start to use that. So in other communities with credit unions, we've got, 50, 100 employees for one organization, all with logins, and they all go independently. So this is really meant for your entire organization, for your interns, your sales teams, your marketing folks, anybody that needs a registration. That's all kind of included under one company account, if you will. So what I'm going to do is just sign in sort of as a demo provider and walk you through kind of this is more the introductory one-time sort of welcome homepage that you're going to see. So there's three kind of areas that I'm going to show you today that I think are probably the most valuable. There's a lot to this, but these are the kind of the main areas. One is the profile component. The others is how do you find other credit unions, and then also joining and engaging. So I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of a highlight on the profile because I think that's step one. When you guys register today, this week, the first thing and probably most important thing I would encourage you to do is really take a good look at the profile. And I want you to do two things. So one, we'd really like you to fill it out, obviously. That's how you get discovered. But also two, profiling providers is sort of a big endeavor, right? So Julie's team and Filene, in conjunction with Filene, have taken a first attempt at these are the fields we think are characterize, this industry's providers. However, those fields are going to, morph over time. So what we would like you to do is also give us some feedback whenever you can about, what, I looked at my profile, I like it, but in our, offerings, we do it this way, or we have this other dimension to our products that I don't see captured here. Could you capture it? And that's what we really want to hear. So to do that, there's a little help menu at the very bottom right. And if you can come in there and just let us know off the bat as many times as, where we got it right on the profile, where we got it wrong, and what we can, augment, that'll help those profile systems grow quite a bit. So to complete your profile, there's two different ways. You can obviously click the big green button right on the home page. The other thing you can do is you can click on your user up here and view your own user profile, and your company name will be listed right here. You can click there and it'll show up. Your company profile will show up. This is what a profile looks like. And from right here, you can click edit profile. And it's a pretty simple edit. When you go into edit, it's all the basic stuff about website. Doesn't look very fancy. Logo, banner, LinkedIn style, all your socials. And then you come down and you start to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty. And these are the fields where we want some feedback. And we also would like you guys to fill it out, right? So your compliance certifications, product categories that you service, different types of integrations that you use, core processor integrations. I know I'm scrolling kind of fast, and I know you guys will kind of peek through that a little bit more. Whether or not you're actively fundraising, this is useful to certain QSOs and certain investors that might be looking, what series you might be at, are you a QSO or not, different types of support pieces. And then they've also classified different types of products and services that you might offer. So if you can, just go, and they made it a simple checkbox list. I like that. That way, it makes it a little simple. And I think you can just kind of go through and click off, kind of what you guys provide to the industry, what credit unions should be interested if they're going to talk to you to make sure, oh, okay, they do money market or check processing or PFM or anything like that. So there's a whole wealth of different fields that are out here and product offerings and a whole lot of different things. It's probably pretty accurate. If there's other categories we've missed or product offerings, that's where I want you to use that help and let us know so that we can get you guys in there and kind of get things taken care of that way. A little bit more, like if I were to pull up like a Microsoft profile on search, then it kind of looks a little bit like that if it's a little bit more dressed up. Right off the bat, too, you're going to see some ratings and reviews. And reviews are kind of done Amazon style. So these reviews are going to be, there's different characteristics that FINNECT is starting to experiment with. What does that look like? So they're starting to do that. Anybody that writes a review can come in and check off the 5 stars. They can start to write things, and they do have a choice of being anonymous or not. Okay, so that I'm never gonna be able to say that word in my life, but anonymity, be remaining anonymous is sort of up to the respect. We want to respect the credit union's wishes if they want to do that. Oftentimes, what you'll see is when it comes to praise content, comments or just very, nice, gentle, professional critiques, you'll often see them go non-anonymous. In fact, they want to work with you guys and they want to make sure and how do we improve things. So all of these ratings are going to be averaged out every night, and so they'll come up with an average rating, and then we'll start to do some interesting things with that in the future. So first and foremost, when you first log in, please complete your profile as much as you can. That is really going to serve as the sort of the foundation and the starting base for how do credit unions find you. We don't want this just to be a Google search engine. They can already Google you. They can read all your press releases. They can do all that stuff already. What we want them to do is be able to start to use some rich data searches and be able to match on some of those parameters. And what you'll see is while you're checking those boxes off, those things are going to give us an indication of what you do and how you're certified and sort of your strengths and, what classification are you a QSO, are you not? And then that way, that's sort of the first stage of saving everybody some time. We have some credit unions where certain types of products, they have an internal policy where they'll only if it's a QSO, only if they've been Series A funded, only if, et cetera, et cetera. And we want to make sure and capture that. And that way that saves you the time, it saves them the time when you finally get into the calls. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how the credit unions are going to find you. And the way, and one of the first tools, they can always search, but search isn't, that works. But we wanted to kind of get a little bit more sophisticated, and this comes out of the filing research piece. What I'm going to show you though is that it's not just useful for credit unions, it's also useful for you on the provider side. So what I'm going to show you is the exact same functionality the credit unions have, but I'm going to kind of hopefully make it a little bit useful for you on the provider side. So the way that we start to use the matching engine the first way is we start to create these things called lists. And what we didn't want to do is just come in and, use some fancy report designer and then that's it. What we thought is, and what we heard from credit unions are, there's lots of things going on in a credit union during the year. You might have head of HR that is just kind of contemplating, I want to keep an eye on this part of the market. I'm not ready to make a purchase decision, but I'm kind of keeping a watch on some things. You might have a different department head that already has budget money allocated. It's the brand new year. They're ready to go and they're actively searching. You have lots of different needs, and you guys know this. What we wanted to do is capture that from a list standpoint. So we wanted the credit unions to be able to create multiple lists across multiple departments and then have common bonds in the platform, FINNECT, be able to keep an eye on the market. And when criteria start to line, we want to let them know about it. The converse is true, though. You guys can do the same thing against credit unions. And that's kind of what I'm going to show you. So under my community, there's an area called My Lists. And what this is going to do is each individual on your end, so these are all your different employees, each business rep, each of your salespeople, your interns, et cetera, will have their own set of lists that they can do. There's two types of lists, an active and a static. Any of you guys that have used, HubSpot or Salesforce or any of these mainstream CRMs will recognize this. The active component means that anything I put in the list, the queries, the filters, the portal's going to keep a watch out on the credit union market. And when credit unions start to match my criteria that I'm looking for, I'm going to start to get notified about it. And I think that's really interesting. So let's just say I'm going to do my let's see, 2 billion credit union HELOCs shortlist. So maybe I'm looking for credit unions that, deal with HELOCs and are 2 billion in asset size, right? So this alone is just my friendly name for it. Now we're going to go in and kind of make some queries and start to kind of, set up this list. So right now there's nobody in the list. If I edit some of the filters for the list, first thing I'm going to do is, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a moment to kind of peek in here. So you start to build out a very simple query. And the fields, I think, are pretty interesting. So in these fields are the ones that are going to grow. So these are the same types of things that credit unions are going to use on you. And this is why we want you to be able to fill in your profile as much as possible. So if I look at credit unions, there's a whole bunch of data already being collected on credit unions. I'm just going to start with a simple one, asset size, and I'm just using a test demo account for today. So I'm going to say asset size, my goal was 2 billion. So I'm going to say filter. In this one simple test example, there's 5 organizations that meet that. We all know there's a lot more than that. And this is just more to kind of show you an example. So after that, I'm going to say, well, I want credit unions that maybe deal with HELOC specifically. So that's a mortgage products used. So what I'm going to do is show me everybody that meets this criteria in asset size and also that deals with HELOCs. So if I save that filter, you'll notice the organizations went from 5 to 4. And we can go in there. And then let's say, well, I want also ones that deal with the DNA core, for example. So I can go down here to credit unions and look at where is their core processor used. And let's just say I only want the DNA credit unions, right? So that gets us down to three organizations. I can save my list. And from then on out, this list will stay there and the portal will start to look out for me. It'll start to see, okay, if there's another credit union that enters the market, whether it's through, and I'll show you later how we get that data. But if a credit union starts to indicate interest or they start offering HELOCs and they fit this criteria, a new item will be added to this list and you'll get notified of it. And I think that's really, really powerful for, on the sales teams, we always have lists. But I don't know that we've ever had a short list market watcher, if you will, dedicated solely to credit unions. And I think that's what's really special about what's going on here, is that for the first time, we have a list watcher functionality that is solely based on credit union data, on credit union products and attributes that matter to us on the provider side. So the same thing can happen. We can make let's say you're going to GAC next week, you can make a handshaking list of, we all have this, right? GAC, going to conference next week, make sure to talk to Bill, Bob, and Sally and Sue, right? And so you can use this to be able to do that as well, or at least give you some names that you may not have thought about. No doubt through all your other sales experiences, you'll have a list of, oh, I already know that I want to talk to Bill and Sally. So what you want to do is come in here and start to add organizations using those same filters. And you can start to use the same thing. So core processor used, let's say DNA. There's a couple, you can click on these and add to the list. The other way you can do it is if you already know some of the names, I'll search for, let's see, I don't know, New Vision, Cardia. So I'll go here, and while you're on one of their vendor profile or their credit union profiles, right here, your personal lists show up. You can just click add to list right here, and it adds that to that list, which I think is just really handy. So if you have a couple credit unions and you just want to search by their name, search their name, quickly add to their list, go from there. If you are curious about their criteria and you want to search on HELOC and some of those more advanced fields, you can use this query engine to build that list for you. And then once you actually get out to, so you can print this and export and do some other fun things. Once you get out to GAC, now you have a nice handshake list to kind of use. So I think that's pretty interesting. Again, this is really basic stuff. It shouldn't look too advanced. You guys' products are no doubt way more advanced than this. But again, what we're doing is we're starting to bring together two sets of rich profiles. We all have LinkedIn profiles. What we wanted to do is take this a step further and ask credit unions to really start to provide system level detail, right? And we think that's valuable for you guys so that you guys can search out who integrates with this, what types of APIs are they using, are they on this, are they on that? That's sort of the holy grail of our knowledge, right? And by doing a concerted efforts of credit unions getting together and volunteering, saying, you know what, we're okay in providing this information. We understand that the provider community is also going to provide information about their certifications and sort of the support that they do. Through that, we're all going to be able to save each other a whole lot of time and be able to find each other a lot better. So that's kind of the list piece, the main piece of that. The last part that I'm going to show you is just kind of a little bit fast look into the future in terms of what you can do. You can already do this day one. If this is already of interest to you, please let us know through that help on the bottom or let Julie know, and we'll be happy to set these up. This is where we get into sort of the groups. So you can go to join groups. So will the credit unions. There's a whole bunch of different groups in the system. You're not seeing all of them here. You're only seeing a couple of them that have kind of made available to my test account. And what we're going to do is we're going to start creating a lot of different groups. But what you can do is we can start to create private groups, private provider groups like this. And then credit unions could come in, or you could come in, or your partners, and you can start to request to join. What I'm going to do is, because this is just a demo account and it doesn't really belong to any groups yet, I'm going to sign out and sign back in under just a different login that already has membership into a sample private group. And I'm going to show you what can be done there. So here, this is what a sample private group might be able to provide for you. So there are discussion forums, which is a very simple set of discussions. If you click into a discussion, you can get lots of different answers. There's voting, comments. There's a whole bunch of different, capabilities. Your users can follow a discussion. You can follow a discussion. This is extremely handy for if you have user group type conversations and you have different people in your organization, like an account executive that has an interest in this, one of my clients just happened to post this discussion. I don't want to man it every day, but I do want to be notified if people start to contribute to that discussion. So I want to go ahead and follow that discussion. And then the portal will let you know when things have been added and so forth. The other thing that I think will be a little bit handy, and this is probably pushing a little far ahead, but is that you can also schedule meetings and webinar calls, quarterly advisory calls between user groups. If there's a meeting coming up, it'll offer the ability for your user group members to suggest an agenda item, which is a very meaningful, subtle way of getting them involved in your call. So it's not just you saying, here's the top 3 things we think you want. The users within these groups will be able to contribute and say, you know what, this is a real pressing thing. Do you mind talking about that in the quarterly call? And then when you go do those calls, your staff would get an email saying somebody has suggested this agenda item. This is who it is. You can work with them, and their name will be known to you and things like that. And you can start to contact them and make your calls a little bit more beneficial. So There's a number of different capabilities that are already available today. We're probably not going to push it super hard right out of the bat because the credit unions are already so excited about finding you guys and finding your profile. So profile is probably number one. If you do have an interest or you want us to help you set one of these up and you're kind of in, what does that mean? How does that involve? How fast can that happen? It's pretty darn quick. And you can let Julie's team kind of know that this is of interest to you and we could kind of guide you through how we might create something like that. And that's pretty much it from there on out in terms of the live demo. I'm just going to spend a quick moment on where all this data comes from. And I know we're running at 43, so I'll make sure and kind of get through this, Julie, and leave some time for Q&A. So one of the questions that we get from credit unions, and no doubt from you guys, is, well, where's all this data going to come from, right? The first and foremost thing, and we told the credit unions the same thing, is that there's no way that a single database is going to capture every single thing that you guys do in your respective companies all the time in real time year round. That's just impossible. There's no system to be able to do that. So what we're going to be able to do is we're making a best attempt at it. And I think the FINNECT team has done a really good job at recognizing that and being very transparent about the fact that the profiles are going to be as accurate as we can get them, right? And obviously, you play a big role in that. Well, FINNECT is also going to help augment some of that as well. And so what we're going to talk about, I'm just going to show you a quick sort of diagram of that, of where the data is coming from. So the best and most accurate data is going to come from you guys. So we really want you to register, fill in your data, assign it to somebody at your organization, and maybe every month, every quarter, we'll send out reminders of here's what your profile looks like. Is this still up to date? And make sure that it's updated. You guys have the most reliable data out there. Our other systems of data will not override what you guys put in there. So you guys are sort of the primary master source of truth, if you will, from that standpoint. We also recognize that maybe you won't fill out all your data, or maybe you're just not a member at all, in which case we're starting to incorporate other things. So there still will be a presence for you in here. It just might come from other sources. So one of the sources is public AI integration. So they're looking at ChatGPT, what those types of LLMs find out about you from press releases, general website scraping, all that good stuff that, a ChatGPT piece will find out about you, which, is pretty good these days. It's not going to be super inaccurate. But will it know things like, are you in fundraising mode? Are you Series A? Is it going to get your certifications exactly accurate? We all know it may not be exactly accurate. So again, that's why we encourage you to register and make sure, the accuracy is controlled by you. Another thing that FINNECT is doing is, I think it's a really good idea, is they have a human team periodically reviewing. And I think that's going to be handy. If you guys fill out your profile today, a quarter from now, we might have somebody on FINNECT's team look at it and say, I looked at a press release and I looked at your profile. It looks like you have new things that you're offering. They're going to go ahead and maybe augment that and start to say, you never filled out this particular part of your profile. We're going to fill it out for you just from what we see online. And so I think that's pretty interesting. Hopefully that's really accurate. And then there's some incorporation of peer reviews and member feedback. When credit unions say, what, we had this experience. This looks like, it is supported or it's not, or what, they didn't say, on the profile, it says they don't have SOC 2 compliance. I just bought from them and I can testify that they do have SOC 2 compliance, thumbs up for that. So sometimes credit unions will come in and start to kind of enhance the story for you guys. But again, the best way to make sure that it's as accurate as possible is to have you guys sort of update it yourself. And we showed you how easy it is. It's not super complicated right now. Julie mentioned there's over 200 pieces in there of information. So there's a lot of data we can collect. Again, with your help, we'll start to make these profiles as rich and useful as possible. Because again, our mission is to save you time, right? Save credit unions time, save you guys time, and go from there. Yeah. So cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, back to you, Julie.
Sure. So if you're ready to get in front of some right credit unions, getting started with FINNECT is pretty simple, as Chris shared. Just go to joinfinnect.com and you can start the registration process. I know that there's some questions in the Q&A chat field. If you have more, that'd be great too. We'll start just kind of going through some of these questions. First one here is how many credit unions have demonstrated interest? Would love a number. I can tell you, Henry, that we've gotten some really great response to this platform, obviously, because it's coming out of the Filene i3 Innovation Forum, the i3 innovators. Those individuals have expressed interest in participating. We just launched this into the fintech and credit union community. So far we have one credit union that has signed on, and we did that after the first demo. Of course, there's this chicken and egg kind of situation, but we have this priced very, very economically to encourage many credit unions and fintech service providers into the system as quickly as possible. And so I'll get into that too. Hopefully you saw that in the demo. The price for credit unions to participate as well as fintechs and service providers to participate is just $1,000 a year. Again, that gives you full access, as many users as you want into the platform. And I know buyer's guides, just traditional buyer guide listings can run anywhere from 1,500 plus. So I hope that you see that the usability, the features, and the functionality of this platform will provide a lot of value for that price. Another question, can fintechs view each other's listing or is it masked? Christopher, you want to take that one on?
Yeah, so those profiles right now are open, so everybody can kind of view everything in terms of how that goes. If that's of concern or if that makes sense to put some privacy settings in there, let us know, and we're certainly welcome to visit that. In the other communities and credit unions that I've mentioned that we're about to start exposing, which is 500 credit unions plus next week to this, we've actually had very little need for that. The initial hesitation I know with some other communities that I manage around credit union space has been, oh my God, we don't, what if they learn this about us and things like that. And what we learned is that not only do fintechs play well with each other, but that a lot of that knowledge is public anyway, and they want them to be known. A lot of those things, certifications, so forth, are already on their press releases. So we haven't seen a huge need for one fintech not to be able to see the other profile of a fintech. In terms of the reviews, yeah, those are public right now. But again, if that's something that's really, really important to you, let us know, and we can draw up some privacy curtains, if that makes sense, and kind of go from there. That's exactly the kind of question and feedback we want to learn about and know about. Yeah, cool.
I answered the cost question. Next question Tricia asks is, will you share these slides after completion? Yes, we'll share the recording. We have a one-page flyer that you can have access, and we'll post the slides in an email for you as well. In terms of contact information, here there's a generic email address, hello@joinfinnect.com. We'll get to all of us. If you could use that, that'd be great. Otherwise, you can reach me at Julie@Ignitify, Ignite, F as in Frank, I as in igloo.com, to reach me directly. And I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, this is a platform that we're creating that's specifically for credit unions and to allow you to engage in this industry. And so we'd love to have you participate in it, give us feedback. The more that you have a chance to participate and be engaged in the community, the better that we're going to be able to make it for everybody. Are there any other questions? All right. If any other questions come up after you've given this some forethought, feel free to reach out to us. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. And we hope this webinar has given you some valuable insights on how FINNECT can help you connect with the right credit unions faster and smarter and more effectively. We look forward to seeing you on FINNECT and helping you build some meaningful partnerships within the credit union community. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.